Hi guys, welcome back to VIS Vlogs. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Gino.
So continuing with our topic on experimental education, today we have Byron, our PBL director, here with us. And we'll be having a short interview with him focusing on PBL education, his vision on this particular style of teaching, and its impact in general. But first, please introduce yourself.
Hi guys, thanks. It's great to be here. Thanks for the invitation. My name is Byron Clarke. I'm the PBL director at VIS. I'm in charge of the direction of the PBL program along with the leadership team here at VIS. I also teach marketing and business leadership as a part of the PBL program. And as the head of the social sciences department, I also teach business economics and help out with the general coordination of the program.
So can you say what do you do specifically as a PBL director in VIS?
Okay, yeah. So as a director of the PBL program, we have a lot of different, moving parts. So I guess in general, one of the big things that I take care of is, again, with the leadership team here, with the principal, the vice principal, and the teachers, we spend a lot of time coordinating how the curriculum should look, figuring out if our standards match, making sure that the students are skill building and making sure that we're going in the right direction. As you know, PBL is quite new in Taiwan, so for us, there's not a lot of information to go on in Taiwan, but we do spend a lot of time also reaching out to organizations to really make sure that our curriculum is solid and that our students are set up for not only the best PBL experience, but also they're set for future educational studies or getting a job or just general life experience going forward. I mean, I guess there's a lot. You probably can do the whole interview on what we do here. Like, for example, we meet all the time to talk about curriculum developments, make sure our standards match, make sure they fit, make sure that students have all the courses they need to go to university. We also have a lot of PD sessions, and I'm in charge of making sure that those fits the need of our school in particular. But there's also lots of other stuff too, right? I went around all day today collecting information from students, making sure that we're being open and transparent with our students, making sure that they all understand our grading systems, making sure that they're happy in their programs, but also they feel like our programs are student-centric and useful going forward. So, I mean, there's a whole web of things, but I guess if you had to sum it up in general, it's just in charge of the general direction and structure of the project and making sure that as a project manager, that everything is moving in the right direction towards our goal of creating the best PBL program in Taiwan.
I see. Okay, so you mentioned that PBL is kind of a new thing to Taiwan and it's very different from the traditional curriculum that we have here in Taiwan. So how do you think the PBL approach impacts students and how does it make them differently as opposed to the traditional way of teaching?
Yeah, I mean, probably you guys are the best people to answer that question, right? Like people who've gone through traditional learning experiences and PBL at the same time. I think from my time, not only in Taiwan, but, in other countries around the world, the traditional education setup is more focused towards building students who are going to fit into a university setting. Whether you're sitting down taking a lecture or, listening about history or working on art projects and stuff like that, it feels like a lot of the traditional systems are to pass tests, do assignments, and just build good students. PBL, our goal is not only to build good students, but also give them the critical thinking skills that they need to not only do well in educational setting, but also in life settings. For example, in our marketing program, I feel we help build students that could easily go into a startup and do maybe a junior internship or work in some kind of company where they're actually going in with some knowledge of what they might do, as opposed to just having the educational foundation. Mm-hmm. So I felt like, for example, when I finished my master's, I really had lots of theoretical knowledge. But then I went to work for a company and things are very different in the real world and the educational world, obviously.
Definitely.
You can learn about all of these things at school, but until you really get your hands dirty, and trying them out, it's so difficult to really imagine what it might be like. Like all of these things are so difficult to do with theoretical knowledge, but so easy when you get a chance to actually explore.
Yeah, so PBL basically focuses on getting students prepared to go into the real world and get a job, something like that, you say?
Yeah, I mean, it's not only for that. PBL obviously is a lot of group work as well. So learning how to collaborate and communicate and, deal with difficult situations is super important as well, which obviously are important life skills as well. But I would say PBL is a place where students and teachers as well, we get a chance to experiment. We get a chance to make mistakes. We get a chance to go back and reflect. I mean, we spend so much time on reflecting and critique and learning how to critique and all these important aspects of just being, not only being in higher education, but also just, being a part of a company or a team, that it's hard to put into like a single word, but just helping build a foundation for a student and then a person who is able to deal with all kinds of different challenges, who's able to think critically and really able to jump into situations they might not be comfortable with and thrive and succeed.
Yeah, we kind of see that in the curriculum as well, because, we get pushed to, engage in different categories of activities, right? So the skills of really adapting to particular goals and working towards them is very important. So yeah, it definitely accounts to a lot of the problem-solving skills and all that we mentioned. Yeah.
All right, so since you talked about the comparison between traditional education and experimental education, we were wondering what are some changes that you observe for students throughout the year after starting the project?
Yeah, so I'd love to throw that question back to you guys. Actually, I think it'd be great to hear your response for the students.
Yeah, so definitely I can relate to it because I used to be in my former school was actually in traditional school, and a lot of things we learned were really fixed, and we learned a lot of stuff on textbooks, and the contents are the same actually for every year, because it's an old school. For traditional schools, the content is always the same, and we don't really have the opportunity to go out and engage basically. But for PBL, a really big change to observe is that we could actually put our hands on a lot of practical skills. And these are the things that you can't learn on textbooks and you can't read, basically. You'll have to do it by yourself using your own hands. So yeah, I think this is a change that I observed for the most.
Yeah. My opinion on this question, even though, we're asking you, we're supposed to, interview you, is that, I only joined in PBL this year. I was in another program last year. And in that program, we don't learn that much team building and working with team cooperation and working in a setting like a company, that kind of thing, right? So when I first transferred into PBL, I didn't really have this skill to work with people, right? I kind of found it difficult to work with people, and I was obsessed over the quality of work. But right now, I think I'm more adaptive and I can work with people better.
Yeah, I mean, that's great to hear. I think that's good feedback. And obviously coming from a student is super important. And I can talk all day about what I see. And I'll give some examples since you asked a question. And I think the big thing we see is that sometimes the educational system assumes that everybody learns the same way. So for example, I'm very good when I watch a video or hear something. I'm very good at remembering it. Other people need to write it. Other people need to read it. Other people need to talk about it. And I'm sure you guys even have different experiences with your own learning habits. And I mean, both of you are quite social. I mean, obviously we see you communicate with your teams and working together. But some students also don't have this, right? Some other students, they like to work on independently and do things in other ways. So I think the big thing that we see is, especially from those students who, I mean, like yourself, maybe who didn't work well with others, but maybe in a different way, the confidence level was so much higher. But also, I think you hit on something very important that we see all the time as well, is that students get to make mistakes, go back, redo, and understand that the learning process is the most important thing and not necessarily always the result. It's almost impossible to get everything perfect, especially the first time. But if you get a chance to go back and do it again, it still might not be perfect. But you're going to know how to do it. You're going to be able to be confident that, you're learning how to do things different ways, and you're experimenting with different learning habits, but also making sure that, the learning process and learning how to achieve something the skills that you need, the background information that you need, going back and research and not being afraid to try things to get better is such a useful habit to have. But really, I think the big thing that we see is the confidence. When you see somebody come in on the first day and they're really nervous to answer a question, and then you see them at exhibition talking to all the parents, talking to all the professionals coming in and the general public and even other classmates, and just being able to really dive deeply into their learning process and explain why their project was important to them, what they learned in this project, and why they're happy to show it off to everybody else. So it's a really exciting thing for us. And there's so many different things, and every student's different. And we see it every year at the end of the year when we do our presentations of learning and when we do our student-led presentations to parents. And it's always a great experience for us to see, coming from point A to point B, but always doing this in a very different way.
Yeah, I think confidence is definitely a big thing. I think it is affected by the fact that PBL is such a adaptable learning program, right? So there's like everyone can find their own position in there. Like that's like, you mentioned that we are more talkative and, socially active. We present a lot, but for those that are quiet, that, prefer to do work by themselves, they take on work that happens in the background and all that. So yeah, I think when everyone can find a spot and contribute to it, they'll definitely be a lot more confident.
Yeah, definitely. We see it all the time. The confidence level is just so great. Yeah. But just, some students don't really fit into traditional learning. I mean, I was one of those students who really struggled sitting down and just listening to a teacher talk for 2 hours. I mean, it's tough, right? And like,
it's always tough.
Even I see you guys in some of my classes and sometimes thinking like, oh, this is going out too long. They're fading. So like, let's get up and like do something hands-on and like go out and like, make something, come back and present it, get feedback from your classmates. And, just because we might be the teachers doesn't mean that we always have the perfect answer. I mean, I think you guys a lot of times get great feedback from your classmates, and something like especially I'm not really that artistic, for example, and seeing somebody who is artistic saying like, oh, why don't you try this or a few little changes, and it's such a good comment, such a great space for people to give feedback. And I think it's just so powerful.
So, PBL is such a great program and we talk about it. So let's do the interview. What are some of the visions you have for PBL? Like, where do you see this project in a few years in the future?
Yeah, so I think as a fairly new school, we're always changing little things, and we're collecting feedback. And as I mentioned before, I must have gotten 150 data points today, getting feedback from students.
Quite a lot.
Yeah, quite a lot. And it's always different. And it's really interesting to see which students get which feedback, but also like the type of feedback that they give. And students are generally on the same pages of each other in a certain degree. And teachers and students are not always on the same page. So it's great to, have these sessions and just talk it out or get information. And the reason that we collect all this information is to build a program. So for me, as coming on here as PBL director, my whole thing is to build a program with a super strong foundation that can really prosper and, basically almost run itself. Basically, it's just like everybody built into the culture. So our big thing right now is culture building and getting everybody on the same page of, respect each other, what each other has to say. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Participate and critique. Respect different types of learning, audio, visual, written, whatever it might be, as like the foundational things that are really going to drive the program. After that, making sure all the standards are strong and making sure that students are learning the things they need for future education or a job or, whatever they need it for. But also going forward, what I would like to see is every student getting a chance to try 2 handfuls of different kinds of subjects and really having a chance to experiment with art and social studies and maths and languages and, all of these different things. So once they get to the end of their journey here at VIS, whether grade 11 or grade 12, they really can start putting together like a full project that hopefully can last for a long time. So for example, this year we've been doing VIS radio, which I guess this podcast is probably for, and we hope to keep VIS Radio here for years to come so students can really feel like, hey, PBL built this program, it built this club or whatever it ends up being. And it's something that we can be proud of. It's something we can look back on. And for you guys, when you graduate, you can have it as like part of your resume or like your CV or even your portfolio. And it's something to say, a potential employer or a school or even just somebody who's interested, you can look back on. I don't know if you guys will ever have your own YouTube channels. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. But we hope that you'll be able to, go back and like think about, in business class problems and solutions, critical thinking. And in your media class, maybe you want to edit videos, but maybe you're just looking at how to captivate audience, and maybe you're giving a presentation or whatever you're doing. So those are like the foundational things that we want to do. But we also want to make a lot of connections between each grade. Whether you're going in grade 9, grade 10, grade 11, grade 12, you're building on different skills. So for example, maybe it's time management that we want to focus on in one aspect. So we start in grade 9, we have time management system in the grade 10, and grade 11, and grade 12, and then US students get to build on these every year.
And it's ongoing experience.
Yeah, it's an ongoing experience, but skill building in general. And we want to help you guys build skills and useful skills that you can use. And you might not use them all, but we hope that the foundations of communication, collaboration, and stuff like that will help you guys feel confident to branch out to other skills. So maybe you don't want to be a part of media. Maybe you want to be a graphic designer or something, right? You can use a lot of these skills, obviously, on a graphic design team, in the same way that you can use it on a marketing team, or you can use it in a science lab. So our vision basically, I'm not really answering the question fully and directly, because vision is such a complicated thing.
Yeah.
But if I have to sum it up, I would say right now, we're building a foundation of a program and an experience for students that not only will help them in their educational and their professional paths, but also something that they can really grasp onto and learn how to learn better. And learning doesn't stop after high school or after university. Definitely. Learning continues your whole life. And if you leave VIS with the confidence and the skills to communicate and collaborate with other people, we believe that you can help each other move forward better than by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And we just want to help create students and give a culture where everyone feels comfortable to do this, but also where everyone feels that they're a part of their learning and a part of their learning path, and they're not dictated by a particular person or a particular system. And the flexibility that we try to bring into the system and student-centric learning and everything like that, and all the great teachers that we bring in who do an amazing job of captivating and engaging students is a huge part of that. If we can even get close to that, I feel like we've done everything that we want to do. And if you guys can look back and say, you know what, you had experience here at this school, it didn't work. Here it didn't work, but you came here and you tried PBL, and now you're confident enough to start your own business or start your own projects, or even just be really comfortable going into university, then I hope that you can look back at your experience and feel like it was a good use of your time.
Yeah. Well, we talked about PBL really in depth in this episode of podcast. And we want to thank Byron for coming on our podcast with us. Thank you, Byron.
Thank you.
And that is it for our podcast today. If you're interested in PBL or VIS as a school, you can visit our VIS website. We'll put the link right here. And that is it for today's podcast. Thank you guys for watching.
Thank you.